Okay, let's talk about, let's do a double show here. This is going to be talking about axe tuning, and also we'll talk about the new, the limited edition Axe PDD. So if you were at World Cup and you were at the Empire booth and you saw the Axe PDD that was on the shelf at the Empire booth, that was mine. Special thanks to A&S Gear for getting that to me. So A&S Gear definitely hooked it up because they pretty much overnighted the gun to me. The day these guns came out was the day of World Cup. So they came out like on the Wednesday of World Cup. They overnighted it to me on Thursday, and I had it and I was able to play with it, which is really cool. Okay, let's talk about really quickly how I tune my axes. A lot of people compliment me on how quiet or how great my axes shoot and stuff like that. So I'm going to share the tips with you. Okay, first thing you want to do is you've got two adjustments on the axe. At the bottom is the regulator. Up here at the top is basically the poppet spring. Okay, now what you do is usually from the factory the regulator comes preset at 200 psi. Okay, you want to shoot about maybe a case, 1 to 3 cases through your gun till your gun kind of settles down a little bit. You're going to feel it. The gun will settle down a little bit. It feels like it won't shoot as tight. It's not going to kick as much. It'll be a little bit more consistent. But you need to get about 3 cases. I'd say 3 cases through your gun first. Now what you do is you need to make sure you get a pretty decent barrel fit. You don't want to be shooting 678 paint through your stock 690 barrel, which I believe that's what the stock bore is on the Empire Axe, is 690. You want to get a pretty decent fit. If you got to borrow a friend's free kit or whatever, but you know, a good fit is going to be crucial in order for this to work properly. Okay, so you go to the chronograph, and what you start doing is this is set at, you got your regulator set at 200 psi. You start backing out the poppet spring pressure here, and you keep backing it out and backing it out. Your velocity is going to start to climb. You're going to start shooting 315, 318, about 320, maybe a little bit more. Once it starts to plateau, so as you're continuing to back it out, the velocity doesn't seem to go up any higher. You want to tighten it probably about 1/8 to about 1/4 of a turn. So your velocity should plateau at about 320 feet per second, somewhere there, maybe 325, somewhere around there. Usually, from what I've seen, it plateaus between about 315 to 320 feet per second. Now, like I said, once it gets to that point, you want to tighten a little bit because you don't want, you want to make sure there's still a little bit of pressure on that spring. If you continue to back it out, what happens is the spring is just sitting there in the middle, and you start getting some real crazy inconsistent shot. Your gun, like your first shot's going to sound like a cannon because the spring, there's no consistent pressure on the spring. You don't want the spring to be able to just move back and forth because there's nothing pressed on it. So as you start to back it out, and as your velocity starts to climb, basically what happens is the pressure starts coming off of the spring, and when it plateaus, there's no pressure on the spring, so the spring can slide back and forth. That's why you want to tighten it a little bit to just make sure there's just a little bit of pressure on the spring to make sure it's locked in place in the middle there between the poppet and the poppet seal. So once that's in place, you're shooting about 320 feet per second. Now what you're going to start doing is you're going to start backing out the regulator pressure, and you're going to start to lower the regulator pressure, and your velocity is going to start to come down. So it's going to go from about 200 psi maybe to about 180, maybe about high 170, somewhere around there. It should start as you start lowering your LPR pressure. Now keep in mind, as you lower your LPR pressure, you got to shoot the 200 psi pressure that's still in the gun. So you may have to shoot 5 or 6 balls in order for it to stabilize at, let's say, at 180 psi or something like that. So you start backing it out, your velocity is going to start to drop. Once it gets to about 290, 295 or so, shoot it quite a few more times to make sure it's consistent in that area. Now your axe is tuned, okay? From what I've seen, guns that have shot about 2 to 3 cases through it, when you set this up properly, you should be shooting between about 170 to about 180 psi, and you should be shooting at about 290, 295. Now, once you do that, basically what happens now is your gun is shooting at the lowest pressure possible, the softest spring pressure possible, and also because it's at a lower pressure, the bolt's not going to move as fast, which is going to be a little bit more gentle on paint. So there's no LPR in the axe, so what the pressure coming in through the regulator is going to determine how fast the bolt moves back and forth. So once you do that, your gun should be shooting pretty whisper quiet, a lot less kick. It's going to be a lot more gentle on paint. So once again, go to the set this at 200 psi, go to the chronograph, start backing it out till your velocity plateaus. Once your velocity plateaus about 320 feet per second, go in about 1/8 to 1/4 of a turn. Then start lowering your pressure through the regulator, get it down to about 180 psi. Velocity should end up right around about 290 FPS. Now you never have to touch this again unless you really get into your gun and completely take it apart or so. You may want to adjust it, maybe check it about every 20-30 cases, but you shouldn't have to touch this pretty much ever again. You'd never have to worry about touching the spring pressure on the back here. You should do all of your adjustments right through the regulator, and also once you get a little more trust in your gun, 10-15 cases through, you can actually just remove the gauge off the side because you should be able to sit probably right between 170 and 180 psi, and you should always be shooting at about 290 to 300 feet per second. So with that being said, Empire Axe Limited Edition PDD. What does PDD stand for? PDD stands for Preferred Dealer Day. I believe it was around February. Empire had a dealer-only event, and all the dealers that came to the event were able to pre-order a limited edition axe that was going to be released right around World Cup, and this is what they ended up with. Badass gun. Basically what they did was it's an axe, but it has the Redline OLED board, anodized to match, and it also comes with the Super Freak front and the Super Freak barrel back. Doesn't come with the Apex. Super Freak barrel front, Super Freak barrel back, and also comes with a 5-piece Freak kit. 690, 675, 680, 685, and 695. So, and the 690 that's already in the gun. So that's what you end up with. Absolutely gorgeous gun. I definitely see Empire doing more of these in the future. I saw this and I fell in love because the Axe has been one of my favorite just beater X-ball guns. I love it. It's inexpensive. You beat the hell out of it, and it's just, I don't know, it just shoots great for X-ball. It's just an awesome beater gun. I love beating mine to death. So that's what PDD stands for. It stands for Preferred Dealer Day. Empire seems to really love coming out with these acronyms and not telling anybody what they stand for. But you can purchase these on ANS Gear. I'll put the link down there at the bottom. If you've been an Axe fanatic and you want to pick up pretty much a badass guy, I believe there's only about 400 of these that got released. You know, are they going to maybe come out with more in the future? Maybe. If these sell really well, I think they will. I hope they do, because I think this is a badass gun. That's a ton of porting on that barrel. And, you know, you combine that with tuning this gun properly, and it is whisper quiet out there on the field. So, Axe PDD and how to tune your axe. I think that's the best way to do it. That's how I've been tuning my axe. I tuned Willie's axes, everyone's axes that I get my hands on that ask me to tune them. That's how I tune them. They've been really happy with them also. Thanks for tuning in.